Welcome to the first Akhtar Bros review.
I guess it's just the channel, really.
Yeah,
we happen to be
review.
the ones doing it.
Yeah.
Akhtar Bros today.
Yeah. We'll figure out a name and a proper intro. But today we're talking The Rise of Skywalker.
Probably knew that because of the title.
Much anticipated, much dreaded, but we'll see what we thought of it right now.
Right now.
This is a spoiler-free review.
Yes.
We'll go in depth in a podcast or other videos.
Yeah.
Both. So
probably.
you're safe to watch this if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And if we do say something, we'll censor it or edit it out or warn you well beforehand. And we're gonna try and keep this shorter, but we're still getting used to that. So hopefully it'll be more
algorithmically friendly.
Yeah.
But yeah, also we just saw it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So our thoughts are still formulating, kind of, and we are prone to change our opinions on things.
Yeah.
And so this is first thoughts. First thoughts.
General impressions. And so,
Yeah.
What is your general impression of it, brother?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
I mean,
you sound uncertain.
Yeah. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. It's improvement.
Yeah, and so the first thing I'll say, I guess,
Yeah,
is
you
that
go first. You have a more concrete.
This is a disclaimer because we are going to be a little bit biased, or at least I am, because we are people who liked where JJ started going with this to a certain degree, very much disliked where Rian Johnson took it with The Last Jedi, and then we're very confused as to how this was going to work with it now coming back to JJ's hands. And so...
And I feel like that's probably, I don't know, I have people that are core Star Wars fans, at least, that know the kind of inner workings and aren't average movie goers that are going to be like, it's a Star Wars film, I don't really care. People who are paying attention to that kind of thing, I think, will have that kind of speculation and questioning. With that, I feel like a lot of people were kind of nervous, almost, and just confused about where this was going to go. And I think after seeing it, it's pretty safe to say that this was very much back to JJ.
Yes.
And so, he brought it back to where he wanted to take the story.
Yeah.
And so, one of my things that I had is that if you were a fan of The Last Jedi, you probably will not enjoy this film.
Yeah.
I'll be fully honest, and as people that didn't like it, we enjoyed it for more.
Yeah.
But I'll never be able to get in the mindset of someone who liked that movie. But if you did like that movie, there are a lot of things in this that I don't think that you'll like very much.
Yeah.
That being said, if you like The Force Awakens and didn't like The Last Jedi so much, there's a lot of things to enjoy in this film.
So I think that I should probably just say I really like this film. And it's not without its problems, and I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that going into it, that this film was going to be somewhat broken because one person started with it, Rian Johnson took it in a different direction, and then JJ had to essentially erase the fact that movie happened at all to make his story make sense.
And the fact that he, without giving stuff away, the fact that he made this trilogy able to almost watch only two of them that are J.J. Abrams' films, and it still makes sense, and to please the fans, where you can watch The Last Jedi, or you can just watch 7 and 9.
Yeah.
And to have that be coherent is impressive.
And yeah, I don't know how, you personally will feel about that, because, if you like The Last Jedi or were fine with it, this is going to seem like a weird film, because what I loved about it was that there are a few sequences where JJ essentially goes through and retcons or, kind of almost spits in Rian Johnson's face about decisions that he had made. And so if you're going into this loving the direction that Rian Johnson took, you're not going to enjoy this film, because this is very much JJ unapologetically taking the reins,
taking it back,
and taking it back onto the path that he wanted to take, you know, and of course it's flawed because you can't do that in a clean manner.
Yeah.
But what this movie brought for me was closure.
Yeah.
Because for me, JJ set something up in The Force Awakens.
Lots of things.
Rian Johnson was resoundingly, like, disappointing as far as paying off things.
Yes.
And this movie finally gave me the satisfaction I needed with a lot of things that Rian Johnson just kind of, you know, snuffed out or, you know...
Yeah, and I think, like, it does. And it does change a lot of, like, it retcons a lot of things that Rian Johnson did, while at the same time almost trying to make sense of it.
Yeah.
You know, so that if you did like that movie, it doesn't completely erase it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like he was very careful in that aspect to kind of go, well, this wasn't entirely wrong.
Yeah.
But it's not the whole truth and correct.
Yeah.
You know,
before this movie, Kieran and I essentially like erased The Last Jedi in our memories and kind of gave ourselves our own headcanon, and that headcanon that we came up with worked for this movie. So if you want to just erase The Last Jedi, this is the movie for you. If you loved it, this is not the movie for you.
And that's something that I'm interested to see how that plays out, is because I'm interested to see if people that like The Last Jedi have any tolerance for this, because I mean, honestly, I don't know what that group of people is looking for in a film, but in my opinion and what, as an educated guess, I would think that it's probably not this.
Yeah. And so, like, just given the fact that The Last Jedi was so different and not the original path that JJ wanted to take, JJ had so much to do in this, so much to change while also moving forward for it to be a continuation of his movie, and I think he coherently did that to a degree.
Yeah.
It's very, very different from The Last Jedi. It's very much The Force Awakens. And so...
In some ways.
In certain ways. And so I think that I count this as a success because this movie felt like a movie.
Yeah, and that is something that I definitely agree with, is that I count this movie as a success.
Yeah.
Is that I was very afraid going in this movie, honestly, and I didn't know how JJ could possibly pull any sort of successful movie off, and although I do have certain qualms with things, and like I have my feelings about some things that they did, but I do count this movie as a success as a whole.
Yeah.
You know? And that kind of goes into something I did have written, is that there are some choices that I didn't fully agree with. There's some things that I didn't love. And there's a couple things that were left to be desired.
Yeah.
And like a couple times when it's like they could have gone through with a couple things more. And so it does really go back to what you said, is that it's not without its problems. There's definitely problems in this film. It's not perfect. And so if for whatever reason you expected this movie to be perfect, maybe lower the standards a bit.
Yeah.
But knowing
what JJ had to do,
it is very impressive, and that's what I had. It's just that what he did a lot with what he had.
Yeah, I had pretty much the same points. Certain missed opportunities to have a really sort of grand finale to all of this,
and
as well as, you know, sort of like there's one particular choice that is kind of just like, shouldn't have done that. That makes it kind of the whole interaction wrong. Yes,
and that's what I had, is just that there's something that happens between a couple characters that I really, that's could be said is the biggest thing that I don't agree with and don't like about this movie. And everyone that we've talked to coming out of the theater and the film, I haven't seen anyone that was like, yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And like, I do know for a fact that there are some people out there that will like that. After knowing this community the last couple of years, there are some people that's something that they'll want.
Yeah.
But for me and anyone else that I've talked to, is that was something that I would have rather live without.
Yeah, and again, we'll elaborate more on this stuff
On the podcast,
on the podcast. There are certain, certain force elements, certain force powers that seem a little bit out of nowhere for this movie. But they're used in a good way. There are certain, at the very, very end, there's sort of this, a use of the lore that doesn't necessarily add up.
Okay.
With where they took certain things, but again, this is sort of just me beating around the bush and tiptoeing so as not to spoil anything. But yeah,
if you're looking to know what he's talking about, check out the podcast
whenever it comes out.
Yeah, when it'll come out. Yeah. Something that just kind of a side note that is something that I had written down is that, again, it goes back to that if you were a fan of The Last Jedi, if you're someone that hardcore backs Rian Johnson, this movie does feel kind of like a cinematic boxing match between J.J. Abrams.
This entire franchise seems like that.
Yes, this trilogy feels like a cinematic boxing match between Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams. And so, do with that what you will.
Yeah.
Another thing, something that I kind of saw, I didn't look into it a whole lot, but I kind of saw an article or a video somebody had out that people are very against fan service. And through this movie, there are things that I think that you could probably interpret as fan service. At the same time, there is a difference. I think you agree with this, is that there's a difference between fan service and doing something that pleases the fans, not for them, but because it makes sense in your story.
In the story, and if fans like that doesn't make it fan service.
Exactly. And
I think there's
things. One big moment that was in my head, pure fan service, but it was absolutely worth it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And even that being said,
it's only half fan service because it's fan service only for people who disliked The Last Jedi.
There's two things in that case.
Okay.
One thing for me was just as Star Wars as a whole. The other thing, there's a couple things that I think that fans of The Last Jedi will deem as fan service. There's quite a few things of that they.
But I loved it.
Exactly, and that's the other thing that I was getting to is, as far as quote unquote fan service goes, we are pretty big. Like, I'm fine with it, as long as it's not looking in the camera saying, "Hey, you like this?" Wink, as long as it's not that.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, it really depends. And I know that there's a lot of people that look at the Marvel movies and say, "Oh, it's fan service," but again, that's very much this is where the story is going. We're doing things. Our fans are with us, and this is what they like it because it makes sense.
Yeah. It depends on the choice.
And so that was something
I didn't notice it too much, but at the same time, I was too busy cheering because of the things JJ was doing and how much it seemed like it was undoing The Last Jedi, which I, thoroughly despise. And I'm not trying to say that that's the definitive opinion. It's just
your opinion.
My opinion, and that's why I love this movie, was because it finally gave me closure.
Yeah.
I could finally breathe for 2 years.
If you're someone that was offended by The Last Jedi, as I feel
this movie will hopefully satisfy you to some degree, because it really just kind of allowed me to have closure on this whole situation. It wasn't perfect, but it gave me closure.
Yeah. There's a for the most part, this is something that I see kind of people bicker over. The movie looks pretty great for the most part. Obviously it does. It's got billions of Disney bucks plugged into it. So that is something that will never really be able to be contested with any of these films, because it's just, of course it looks good. But if that's something that you were worried about, it does look good. There is one scene
de-aging, that's not too spoilery.
Yeah. There's a scene where it looks kind of wonky, and it's kind of something that for some reason Star Wars has trouble with. And so, without saying any more, it'll probably get a spoiler. And so, if you're thoroughly offended by the wonky, uncanny valley things, you might have a bit of a fit.
And it was still all right.
And it was still fun.
It essentially seemed like You know, like it seemed a little bit video game-esque.
Yeah, it's just enough for you to go, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
So. I just wanted to say some of the things that I liked right off the bat were character interactions seemed a lot more natural and a lot
that's something I was going to say.
Good.
Are the characters in this movie felt like people?
Felt like people. Whereas in The Last Jedi, in my opinion, everything was just kind of disjointed. People
made choices to serve the plot,
not because of what they
which is something that we've seen in cinema
and shows
in the past, like recently.
Yeah,
is that once characters no longer do what they would do and act only to serve the plot, it's really it takes away
and so this
bad.
One seemed like they were real people. They weren't just puppets moving the story along.
Exactly.
The characters were driving the story, not the other way around.
Yeah. If you're somebody that is very against the new characters, you probably won't love this.
Yeah.
Like, this is probably a little bit of a spoiler, but not really. I personally would have liked a lot more of the old characters in this one. You know, and it's not, they don't have any less than in any of the other movies, but as this trilogy as a whole, I think could have used a lot more of the older characters.
And given the situation that, and I'm not going to really stray away from spoilers from The Last Jedi.
Yeah, no.
So spoilers for The Last Jedi if you haven't seen it, but JJ started this movie. What?
I said don't see it.
Yeah. JJ started this movie with Han and Luke dead, and Carrie Fisher in real life, you know, having passed away. Yeah. And so there's only so much he can then do with that.
Yeah. But what he did with it, I think was successful.
Yeah.
Too.
I liked kind of the general message. It wasn't, you know, quite, I've always wanted this one thing from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it didn't get there, but barring that part of it,
I think,
you know, mysteries were answered.
Yeah.
Things came to a nice conclusion. You know, certain things were left to be desired. Certain choices were, you know, not necessarily where I would have taken it, but I knew this movie was going to be flawed, and it brought me closure, and for that reason, I really liked it.
Yeah, like, I enjoyed it. There are things that I didn't agree with, and things that I would have liked to see that maybe we didn't. But I do definitely think that it was successful, and I think that, not being perfect, but pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
So we're still figuring out a rating system, but out of Chewbacca's bandolier, what would you give it?
You know, probably like close to the top rung of the bandolier. Maybe
not like Solo when he had 2 for some reason.
No,
not
just
quite
like
that.
So he's got those squares on his bandolier. Yeah. I'd say like it was this square.
Okay, I think it was like above his shoulder blades, but on the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what that translates to in real person
out
words,
of 10.
Out of 10, I would give it an 8, which is really rather high.
That is rather high.
But, like, again, completely biased. Like, I know this movie was not good.
Yeah.
But
not necessarily not good.
Well, no, sorry. I don't mean that. I know that this movie was not perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
And that it had problems. It left some to be desired, but it was a coherent story.
Yeah.
And what it did for me personally was absolute closure, where there was only just dread and like hatred and disappointment. You know, and so for that reason, it's a biased number. Absolutely, I will not deny that. And I might give a technical, like, completely analytical answer.
Yeah.
But for this one
we'll
review,
have to see it again,
for this one review, I'm answering with my heart.
Okay.
And my heart says 8 out of 10.
Okay. See, I'm kind of bouncing between, like, close to like a 6.5 to 7. So like. That it's kind of, I'm sorry, it's not a definitive number, but that's kind of my ballpark range, because like you said, it's not perfect and there are things that are to be desired, but that's why I lean closer to 7, is because it does a lot for me. You know, like it helps a lot of things that I've highly disliked for the past 2 years, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable giving it higher than a 7 just because of some of the problems in it.
Yeah.
At least right now, too.
That's fair. And these are liable to change.
Yes, very, very likely to change, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that is our review, probably still longer than we would have liked.
Yeah, and we'll edit it down as well.
We're still working on this entire format, but yeah, there will be more opinions on this movie coming up. This was just kind of our spoiler-free review for people to look at.
Yeah.
And like another thing that I had written is just like I would still recommend this movie.
Yeah.
You know, like see it if you're someone like who's never seen a Star Wars movie for some reason. Don't start with this one.
Yeah.
Watch the other ones for sure. But should you see it? Yes. And I mean anyone who's gonna see it is still gonna see it. No one's gonna throw away their tickets at this point. You know, and so see it. Form your opinion. Do you agree with us? Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
And that's fine. Your opinion is your
How do you
opinion.
feel about this trilogy as a whole?
Yeah,
For us, it's basically only 2 movies now.
Yeah, this trilogy is broken, but satisfying in the end, thanks to this movie.
Yeah.
You know, there are some things unexplained, some things unexplored, you know, that just because...
Which I'm sure they'll do in the next million Star
next
Wars
time they
movies
reboot it.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, it brought peace. It brought peace to the galaxy.
Justice to the galaxy.
Yeah. It brought peace and justice back to my soul.
Yeah.
And so, for that reason, I really liked it because it essentially just spat on The Last Jedi.
In a lot of ways it did. And so,
yeah.
I hope you like that. Subscribe.
Yeah. Give us a like if you disagree or agree. Dislike it if you hate our opinions.
Yeah, show us.
I hear that actually kind of does the same thing at this point.
It honestly doesn't really matter. But instead of doing that, if you don't agree with us, please tell us why.
Yeah, comment.
We want to know.
We'll probably reply to that.
We will 100% reply to that unless it's horrible.
Yeah.
In which case, don't. Just don't.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear what people think about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be more of us talking about it. We've said this already. We keep dragging on because our endings are always a million. But in conclusion of this review...
This movie was satisfying as hell.
To him. and to me, yeah. But yeah, let us know. Do all the button clicking that you can do on our video. See you later this week.
I am satisfied.